Hi, everybody. Thanks for joining us on this podcast today. I am Barry Landis, and I am sitting with a really good friend of mine, Michael Whittaker. Hi, Michael.
Hey, Barry. Thanks for having me.
Michael Whittaker has a storied career, and if you don't mind, I'm going to give you just a little bit about that so people who are listening have a sense of what you've been doing in your life. Michael Whittaker is a highly accomplished musician and composer based in Nashville now. He was in Los Angeles, got his start in jazz and classical piano at a young age, developed his own distinctive musical style by his 20s, and became one of LA's most in-demand session musicians and sidemen. After graduating from UCLA film scoring, Michael has leveraged his diverse musical background and orchestration abilities to score over 300 TV shows and movies, including wildly popular series like Power Rangers. He has won multiple awards for his compositions in orchestration in both film and TV, as well as jazz music over the last few years. Highly regarded in the industry, Michael has been hired by top entertainment companies like Disney, Sony, NBC, Lionsgate to score film and television. He's also collaborated with A-list musicians across genres from jazz to pop, had his own theme song chosen as the flagship tune for Disney's Family Movie Channel in 2011, and still independently active today across TV and film and his own jazz productions. Michael's musical career spanned over two decades of creativity and acclaim across both commercial and artistic musical spheres. And he is also, what I really, really love, is the director of the ScoreCraft Composer Academy in Franklin, Tennessee. So, Michael, how do you get all that done in one lifetime? That's pretty amazing.
I don't know. That's why I was kind of feeling like I should be dead already after you read all that.
You are not that old. As I look at you, I consider myself to be a different generation than you, and you're still in your prime. I'm so excited to have known you, and we're going to talk about a couple of our personal experiences. But I think first off, the first question that occurs to me is you started in piano at a young age, and I'm fascinated with what drew you to music and piano in those days.
Yeah. Well, my grandma had a piano in her house, and I was able to oddly just sit down and play by ear. I had a very unique gift where I could just play the piano. And so I was very much an ear playing person. And my dad had a love for piano. He loved Jerry Lee Lewis, and my grandfather loved Fats Waller and Art Tatum and some of these incredible jazz piano players, and they would play these records, and I would just go back to the piano and start playing the same thing, and then it kind of freaked them out. Of course, I was no Art Tatum or, at that age, but I really took a liking to piano. And so that there was kind of a natural thing. And, my parents ended up getting me a piano, and then, of course, taking classical lessons, which I think everybody did. If about $1 for every time somebody said, "Hey, can you?" I wish I would have stayed with my piano lessons so I could play,
Right.
I was one who stayed with it. And of course, I hated classical piano lessons, as every kid did. So I got outside of that and really got into, at the time, was boogie woogie music and things like Jerry Lee Lewis and that sort of thing. And then that, like, you kind of evolve as a pianist and get into other styles. And then later on, of course, I went to school for jazz piano, and that was my passion for a long time. And but I ended up being a sideman in LA, doing all kinds of music, not just jazz, but everything you can think of.
Wow. I'm intrigued with how that then intersected with your abilities or stylistic sensibilities with regard to composing. And do you find that comes into it?
100%. Yeah. Because at the end of the day, especially being an improviser, when you improvise, John Williams is a jazz piano player. A lot of people don't know that, but he's a phenomenal jazz piano player. And when I listen to his scores, I really, on a lot of levels, hear jazz piano, and especially in The Terminal, the movie The Terminal, we really hear him really going into jazz music. But jazz is improvising, so you're emoting. You are having a conversation in music, and so that same conversation is a similar conversation that happens with film and television music, right? There's a conversation that goes on, of course, the dialogue with what's going on between your characters, but musically, you're telling the same story. You're having that conversation with chords and voicings and textures and harmony, and whether it's soft or whether it's loud or whether the register is high or whether it's down low. Like, all these things are really awesome to help tell this story. And I think my background as a piano player, being an improviser, I think I took to film and television because it was a way that I naturally already did. And of course, growing up playing in church, when the pastor is giving the altar call at the end, you're playing behind him, creating these moments. And so it's a similar thing. Music is emotion. It draws us in and it connects us to people. It connects people from sitting in their seat in the audience to characters on the screen. And so I loved it. I just loved the idea of doing that.
So that's an interesting point you make about playing in the church. How did keeping your mind attuned to what was going on in the church service at that moment, following the pastor, give you some insight into what I might call extemporaneously knowing where to go and what to do at a given moment?
Yeah. Well, I think it's music is energy on some level, and as somebody is speaking and you're following them, the kind of energy you create with music, it's interesting. Music is only 12 notes. That's all we have in all recorded music, Western music anyway. And the way we can manipulate pacing, tempo, how fast as a piece of music goes, these all connect people and move your emotions in different ways. Even in a pop song, like when I hear a pop song that's gone flat, a lot of times it's because the artist or producer hasn't allowed the song to move in a way that can connect people. So starting somewhere and then going somewhere, taking us on a journey, so that musical journey is, as a pianist, is what you're doing when you're playing behind a pastor or whether you're scoring a movie.
Wow. So one of the things you and I talked about early on in our relationship was your role working with trailers. Mm-hmm. And you seem to be, you were unique to me in the aspect that I never really knew that you would score music for a trailer that wasn't music that was used in the movie. That sometimes you just wrote complete scores just for trailers. I find that fascinating. Tell me a little more about that. I mean, I'm again not that familiar with it, and I'm surprised by that because I would have thought most trailer music would have come from the movie itself.
Yeah. Well, in some big movies, whether it's Star Wars or you have a famous movie like, like Charlie and the Chocolate Factory or something, and they're going to redo Pure Imagination, the classic song. You will pull from those themes of a movie, and you could trailerize those themes, but a trailer music in itself, it has to be thought about differently than underscore music. Underscore serves the picture, it serves the emotion. Trailer music is it's a bouncing off point for to pull people in with edit points, because the video editor, of course, they can edit pictures all they want, but without these impacts, without these hits, without the space in between these hits, those edits don't pop off the screen in the same way. So when we're creating music for trailers, there's an arc to them. Most trailers start at one level, whether it's just a piano melody or it's just some kind of cinematic hit, or what we call a bram, which is like what you heard Hans Zimmer in Inception, these big horn hits. But there can be all kinds of emotion, but at the same point, you're creating a way for an editor to connect these, because we're not watching a scene in a trailer. For example, we're going from scene to scene, pop to pop, and we're trying to create interest and an overall arc that's going towards the end, that you're like, man, I gotta see this, right? I want to see this. That was insane. If you took the music out of the trailers, of course, it would just feel really dead, and none of those edits would make any sense. So most trailer music is edited. Most trailers are edited, and most trailers aren't scored to the picture. Most of the time, they're drawing on music libraries, music catalogs to actually create those edits. And most editors will like to edit to music, even if it's not the final music.
And when you get that kind of an assignment, is that coming from the director? Is that coming from a music supervisor? Is that coming from an editor? Who's it coming from?
Yeah, most of those are coming, first of all, from music libraries. So most music supervisors and most directors and producers are going to libraries for that kind of music. For example, like Q Factory or something like that. My teacher is one of the biggest trailer guys in Los Angeles, and so working with him, I really got a really good handle on trailer music. So most of it is pulled from libraries. Now the custom trailer stuff, you would be working with a director or a producer to create something unique that they can't find, or pull on themes that have already existed, or maybe there's a location, maybe you have a kind of a Middle Eastern theme or something like that, and there's really nothing that they can grab that's hitting this. So then you're creating something and working with them to create something that kind of creates the emotion that they want to go with.
Nice. That's really good. So when you get a call from somebody and you're actually being asked to work on the score of a movie, what is your creative process like? How do you get going? What's the starting point for you?
Well, I mean, one thing I will say is that, for a director or producer maybe listening to this, getting the composer involved before you finished it up, so that even, if it's next year and you're shooting, that composer can be thinking creatively, because it's frustrating when you get a project and then it's like, okay, like my first movie from Lionsgate was one of the Leprechaun movies. And they said, okay, first of all, they didn't want to hire me because they didn't know who I was, right? So I didn't have a big agent. And but the director who won the Academy Award for student film at the time, he really fought for me to be on it. And anyway, I would not recommend going and watching that movie. But yeah, so getting the composer involved early is important. That movie, that movie, I had 3 weeks to score over an hour's worth of music. So obviously you can't do your best work under those kind of time frames. I mean, sometimes pressure is good and it helps, but getting people involved early is important. And then it's a conversation between the composer and the director or producer. You know, it's different in film. TV is different than film. Usually film, you're dealing with the director, but it's that conversation. And then you'll sit down together in a spotting session. Spotting session is where you would decide what kind of music goes in there. You also want to really have clarity to the composer on the direction that you want, because with the limited time and how involved it is to actually do these orchestral mock-ups with the MIDI, especially if you don't have the budget for a live orchestra, that kind of work is a tedious data entry job. And for you to do a bunch of work and there wasn't clear communication, like, for example, I'm doing a project right now for Paramount. And I won't say a lot about it, but I will say that they sent me the theme for the current NFL theme and the CBS theme for the different stations' NFL themes. And okay, great. They wanted something in the vein of that, and so I did it, and then I went back and they said, "Oh no, we want this more modern." And so I literally had to just scratch all this work I did because they hadn't communicated. Of course, you know, I redid it for them, you know, but you know, at the end of the day, that communication is really important. And getting somebody in there early, you can do some mock-ups, you can do some soundscapes and kind of explore different ideas, or even tempt the movie or project with other scores that the director loves, you know.
Do you think it's possible that, or even probable, that the filmmaker doesn't really know it till he hears it?
I mean, it's possible. It is possible. Yeah, it is possible. I think everybody is different. You know, everybody's. It's the challenge for the composer is communicating with a director or producer that doesn't speak composer language, and so for me, I have a long list of adjectives that I try and run by the director so that I understand when we're talking about a musical idea, is it the energy you don't like? Is it the pacing? Is it the register, whether it's high or low? If we took this out, would that be better? Does it need to be more emotional? Does it need to be more sparse? Is there too much going on? Music, some of the best music that exists in the movie is silence, you know, for me. Mm-hmm. And silence is a vacuum that draws your audience in, and the contrast between music and silence is super powerful.
Do you keep that list of adjectives somewhere, or is that just in your head?
It's in my head, yeah. And I was rattling off a few.
No, but I think we all use them, right? It needs to be lighter. It needs to be more dense. It needs, like, what do all these things mean? But they're hard to.
That's right.
hard to use sometimes. Do you have any different approaches when you're talking about films, like a theatrical film versus episodic TV music, back and forth? Or is that different to you?
Yeah. It's way different. So overall in a film, that's an hour or longer, there's an arc to the score that, you're introducing ideas, you're introducing themes. Sometimes you're actually using tricks that will kind of trick people into thinking one character is the good guy or bad guy when they're not. You're creating these ideas and creating people's sense of connection to characters early on. Those things are developed more later as events unfold in a movie. So the way you kind of set these things up, I think, is important. In episodic television, like, I'll give you an example. The Ninja Turtles, when I did that back in the 90s, they messed around with the edits forever. And I got the episode the day before it was mixing, which is insane. So this is a wall-to-wall music, it's a 30-minute episode, which means 23 minutes of music with TV commercials. So I was thinking through ideas of what this score was going to sound like without seeing the picture. And then I had really 24 hours to turn around all this music. So I had the music supervisor actually stayed up with me all night. I fell asleep several times, literally just in my chair. And he would wake me up, give me coffee, and keep writing till noon the next day. And we finished it. Most TV series you'll get on a Sunday night, and you have to turn it in by Thursday night or Friday morning. There are fixes, and then by Saturday they're going to be either mixing or it has to be delivered, and you get a new episode on Sunday if it's a really fast. Like when I did the new Addams Family, that was 65 episodes. So every single week you get a new episode. And in the case of Power Rangers, they did 2 episodes a week, and I obviously cannot write 2 episodes worth of music a week. And so it would go to a music editor, and we would be editing a lot of that stuff. So when somebody morphed or transformed, we edit those same themes in. So it's a lot faster pace, and there's less time to think through changes. I love film compared to television, but I'll be honest with you, I've done way more television than film, and I think it's been good for me and my chops as a composer, because it makes you, watching video, seeing video, is and understanding how video is edited and transformed. As a musician, if you're a musician listening to this, understanding how transitions work with an editor, how much space they leave between cuts and things like this. All this plays into the way you approach music, right? And the way music can sometimes save the editing when you have an editor that's not the greatest.
Boy, heard that. So we're going to try to keep this tight, Michael. I'm going to go about another 5 minutes or so, but I want to ask you some quicker questions here, if we can do that. Can we?
Okay, yeah. Speed questions.
If you could score any TV show or movie from the last 100 years that you've not yet worked on, what would you choose and why?
Yeah, it's hard because I think I would screw it up, but because they would all probably come from John Williams and Spielberg, of course. But I love fantasy adventure movies, so I'd probably I would probably say a movie like Hook or something like that, that was like magical Peter Pan, orchestration wise. It would be just amazing. And to work with a real orchestra, of course.
Yeah, wonderful. If there is there a song in your mind, maybe it's been going through your mind recently, or maybe it's just a favorite song of yours that you think, man, somebody ought to use that song in a movie?
I know you asked that, and I don't have a good answer for that. I will say a couple artists that I love though. One is artist I work with. Her name is Svrcina, Svrcina. She also works with Tommy Prophet, who is another artist I love. I would definitely check out their music.
Right.
They love cinematic music. So
Nice. Do you have any hacks or time savers for musicians, for music supervisors, for directors, for anybody in the filmmaking world when it comes to music?
Yeah, I think don't when it comes to music, don't be on the no plan. So the music is often an afterthought. So this is why we need to get the time saver is getting somebody who really understands music for film and TV. The cool band member that you may know is probably not the guy who really understands this. And but in general, it's like just have a game plan ahead of time with your music composer.
I was going to ask you who your favorite composer was, but you've said his name several
That's
times
right.
in this.
I mean, of course, it's John Williams. Of course, I love James Newton Howard, Alan Silvestri, Jerry Goldsmith, Ennio Morricone. All these guys I love, and we study in depth their scores in my scoring academy. So I'm always learning. I'm a lifetime learner.
Here's one I was not even thinking of until this moment, but when you say Morricone, I had no idea the guy did all the spaghetti westerns until I became a fan of all the westerns. And then I'm like seeing the credits and I'm like, wait a minute. And so I guess that's how spaghetti western came. So, I'm not a huge historical fan of film, but I love the I love the fact that he invented that sound almost that.
Yeah. And there goes. It's like your movie. Here's a good example, Barry. It's like that sound, and it's what makes an artist also. I see so many generic sounding songs, and what made Ennio Morricone so amazing is he created a sound that we can just like identify with. And it's the same thing, like your composer, or if you're a producer and you're producing for a record, it's like your artist has to sound different than somebody else. I mean, we need to hear something new. We've heard all the other stuff before, so giving that creative freedom is oftentimes not given. And it's amazing when it happens.
A couple other quick questions. Tell me about the Southern Exposure Project. Okay.
Well, that project is pretty old now, but that was a jazz project that, I have to do something to satisfy my musical itch. I don't make a lot of music or money playing super complicated jazz music. So that was a project that, I got a lot of my incredible music friends together, like, Tom Hemby and Keith Carlock from Steely Dan, and other just really A-level musicians. And we went in the studio and just recorded some really intense jazz music.
I know those guys. Aren't you doing some shows with them?
I just did one last week with Keith Carlock from Steely Dan. So he's an absolutely incredible drummer.
And do you do it regularly? Can people check it out somewhere?
I don't do it regularly with my schedule, so I try and make time for those sorts of things. But with the academy this year and with projects going on, I do that as a labor of love. So you just have to follow me. Follow me on my socials.
We'll try to drop a note if you ever do a pop-up one again. We'd love to catch it sometime. Let me just kind of get us, maybe the last question is about the ScoreCraft Composer Academy, and you're the director, and you've been doing this for many years now, over a decade.
Yeah.
And you've graduated a bunch of young people out into that world. Tell the audience about that. Well,
I'm super passionate to help other people get to their next. I've done this for a long time and have a lot of experience. And there's not a lot of places like you can go to USC for $100,000 a year, or you can go to Berkeley for 60 grand a year. But for a person who's already in the music business, who wants to learn specifically music for film and TV, this is a 5-month intensive with me, actually me personally mentoring you and 20 other composers from around the world. We have composers, you'll be working with people in London and in Asia, and we all meet via Zoom. And every week you're scoring a new film. So we'll be working on something from a sci-fi, like a Predator or something like that. And then we'll work on a romantic comedy. Then we'll work on trailer music. And so you'll actually score about 4 times as much score to picture projects as going through a major university through this. You learn by doing. And of course, you get feedback every week, and we listen to each other's music every week. It's an amazing program, and the transformation is dramatic with these composers.
Wow. Michael Whittaker, thank you so much for taking a chunk of your busy day to chat with us. You have just been a delightful addition to my life recently. You've stepped up and done panel discussions, and now podcast, and you've been super helpful to me, and I appreciate it from the bottom of my heart.
Oh, thank you, Barry. And I'm honored to be a part of this, and I wish you all the best on this. And I know that you are super well respected, and the work you've done, and I know anything you do is going to be awesome.
Well, thank you, and we'll say goodbye for now.
All right, take care.
Bye.